Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Swordsquatch 2020, Cybersquatch. Welcome, and we're super glad that you could make it. My name's Aiden. I've been with the Swordsquatch committee since the beginning. Looks like tonight we are going to be having Beth lead a session, and we've also got Tim, another organizer, on the call. Moderators tonight are going to be Alex Hanning and Clara Elliott Smith helping us out. And yeah, do remember to read our code of conduct. If you violate the code of conduct, we'll have to ban you, and that'll suck. If you need any assistance, have any questions, please use the chat or the Q&A feature, and we'll get to questions when there's a good break. Yeah, let's get started.
So hi, my name is Beth Hammer. I live in Seattle, Washington. I have been doing HEMA and for about 5.5 years. I've been doing Latosa Eskrima for about 6 years, and I am a Tuhan. That happened last November. It's very exciting. And what? Did someone say something?
I said congratulations, and I realized I wasn't muted. Sorry.
So yeah, HEMA, Eskrima. If you're not familiar with Eskrima, it's Filipino stick fighting and machete fighting, and kind of everything from empty hand knives all the way through big staffs and stuff. It's a very transitional system, and has been one of the really major, like massively major portion of my training. And not only does it like make me a better fighter personally, but it has also really informed how I teach and coach, and has been a huge place where I have learned coaching and learned how to best share motor learning skills and all that biz. Also, for the last 2 years, I have been doing armored combat through both HMB and then a little bit of IMCF. I've fought internationally and won some tournaments and some stuff. And that's been super fun, and also has been a really interesting transition in terms of taking all of these skills that I've learned in HEMA, and really especially the stuff that I've learned through Eskrima, and having a new place to apply it and kind of have it all come together in a very different way, because there's certainly a lot more grappling and wrestling stuff. And that's been great. One of the things that I've also learned through that is just the really huge importance of cross-training and trying other things, and seeing, taking the skills that you learn here or learn in your longsword class, and like go try other things, because you when you play with different weapons and different size things, you learn really profoundly different things, and and the way that your skills transition throughout all these different weapons is really important, and kind of will come back into play with what we're going to be doing today, because we're going to be using a bunch of different sized weapony objects to hone the skills that we're going to focus on. Okay. Whee! Okay, so here we go. Small stuff. This is what we're here to talk about today. What do you like? Things about being smaller than your opponents. I am 5'3". I am smaller than most everyone that I fight. My main group of training partners are all like at least 5'11". So I, in particular, when I've done a lot of standing grappling and wrestling stuff, and with Alex and with some of the other guys around town here, and they are all so much bigger than me. So I have spent a lot of time figuring out how to not just get completely squashed immediately when I'm fighting someone that is 6'2" and 100 pounds bigger than me. And so that's kind of some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today. But first, in the Q&A, post some answers to this question of what are some things that you as small fighters either find particularly challenging or particularly good about being small, and things that you have an advantage of by being shorter than your other opponents. And go. Ready, go. Thanks. Is this, or is it happening in the chat? In the Q&A, not the chat. Some of the things that that I have encountered that are kind of fun about being short is that I'm a very frustrating and interesting opponent for people or for my taller training partners, because all of these things that like normally like that's someone's hips, but it's like in a weird place, or like my legs are so much farther away from everyone. So it's that causes some weird things. Sarah's answer, challenging about getting grappled up high. Like, yes, and that's one of the things that we're going to be looking at today. And what about, here, I can make you talk. Sarah, where are you? Where's Sarah Lewis? Wait, no, I went away.
No, I think you did what you wanted.
Yeah, no, with rapier, what do you mean by that you're harder to hit with for a rapier?
So I'm able to kind of bend down behind my guard and have a lot more of my body defended, harder to hit further away.
Oh yeah, that comes up like in shieldy sort of things as well. Like you can like, yeah, the hiding behind stuff because there's a lot less of you. That is
same thing in sword and buckler, absolutely.
Yeah. Charlotte's question, bad, closing into range is very hard, and good, I dodge more easily and people can miss my side. Once I pass their guard, I have more options. Yeah, that is, yeah, so one, legs are shorter, it's hard, there's a lot more distance to cover, and so there are ways to train and work on that, and working on explosive footwork is one of the things that is really important, and there's a lot of ways to train that. We'll get a little bit of that today, but that's a thing that that definitely just working on getting that foot speed faster. But yeah, you're much smaller, you can dodge easier, and like once you get into that close range, like it's a good place for you, but oftentimes the other person starts getting really cramped and can't do as much because that's how grappling, that's how distance works. So yeah, that one is a good one. I guess make it go away. Yes, the reach advantage is is a huge thing. We're gonna get into that. We'll just do these two more questions and then get into the stuff. Yeah, dude, letting Kristen's question, like getting someone to whiff over your head is just the coolest thing. Because you can just duck. So Carrie Pat, I'm gonna read this out loud. What am I doing? It's harder to get a taller person in a lock, but once they're in it, you hardly need to do anything to apply enough pressure because you're already much further down than them and you're bringing them way further down than they are used to going. Yeah, so grappling a tall person, one of the things that's super cool is that all of their force is going down, and then it's you and your legs and your whole body and the ground against them and their piddly little arms. So you have a ton of advantage by that difference where the force is going, whereas when people are the same size and they're clashing, there's a lot more like just muscles going into things, and like that is where it's a much different fight than when you can have the whole planet as on your side. Cool. Okay, so looking at my notes. So basically, kind of what I in getting ready for this and like really trying to sum up these things a little bit more tightly. What there's being a small person, you need to be generally really good at all of the aspects of fighting, because it's kind of like you just need to be a little bit better because all of these, you are competing against all of these physical advantages. But the two things that are really, really key and crucial are that you need to be really excellent at judging distance gauging that distance and gauging that measure so that you can move through it quickly and effectively. And then grappling. And not necessarily, you know, like if you are skilled enough that you can take down a giant person, then that's like even better. But the main thing is that you need to be able to take force and deal with that force without getting knocked over, and be able to either use it against them or get out of it safely, and then either finish your attack or be able to run away, or any of those sort of decision tree options. But basically you need to be good at distance and you need to be good at grappling. One of the things that our good friend of Swordsquatch, Amanda Trail, has talked about is the donut of disappointment and the bagel of opportunity. You need to get, there's like these range of things, and you need to get from the donut of disappointment through that whole space where you're just gonna get hit and you can't really hit them and they can just pick pieces off of you, into that bagel of opportunity, and then you can make good things happen. And then particularly in longsword fencing, you also need to then be able to get out, because in most of the rule systems that we fight in, getting, you know, the best and safest way to get points is to get in, make an attack, and leave without getting hit. So that is the main thing that we're going to show. There's a series of drills that we're going to go through that have been pre-filmed. It was very exciting yesterday. And that's going to basically be talking about, that's really going to be focusing on how to practice that in and out stuff, and how to learn how to be able to tell how to train that ability to be able to tell, measure, no matter who you're up against, and being able to like be dropped into any situation and just be able to make those choices and get in and out safely, and that. So like you can train that by just sparring a ton of people and just learning that over time. But one of the things that we really like to do here is like really breaking down skills and problems, and then devising very specific drills that isolate this specific thing so that we can work on them. And so with motor learning, the best way to do that is by creating circumstances in which you're solving randomized problems with lots of different variables, but that are still like all within the same, you know, sort of thing. So so we're going to be using different length weapons. We're going to be using different that both you have and your opponent have, and then moving in and out of those spaces and seeing how those how that works. Okay, so thing number one, we're going to start with this first video. Make the Q&A go away. We don't need the sound. We'll have a little bit of sound. Okay. So this is a super, super simple drill. Andrew is the feeder and Catherine is the worker. Andrew is feeding just a really simple X pattern with the pool noodle. We're using pool noodles, one, because it's hot, and two, because the focus is not on the sword work per se, it's on gauging the distance and moving your feet. So we're taking out I'm just gonna start it over. So we're taking out the piece of like you having to think about all these things about sword stuff and just focusing on gauging that distance based on that weapon and how long your weapon is. She's trying to get in, make a combination, and then jump out. And so you just go through this for a few minutes and then pause, and then we're gonna add some more variations. Not too much, second page of notes. Yeah. So that's that one. How we can practice this same sort of thing by ourselves is, screen share. Go. So here, Catherine has that same size noodle and 3 different depths of a target. So she's starting from the same place every time and coming in, making an attack, and then leaving on an angle, because we never want to practice going straight backwards, because that's morally wrong and really bad habits to get into. It doesn't matter if you mess up, just keep going, reset, get back into it. And you'll see, so she's trying to make sure that she's starting from the same place, so that she is sort of you can simulate a moving target with that. If you want to add variations here, you can, make sure, give the, whatever, like with the red ball, if you give that a push and then now it's moving, and now you have a few more variations to deal with. Also, when I was writing my notes, I was like, ooh, if you had a Roomba and a balloon, and you put the balloon on a Roomba and then like sparred the balloon, that would give you some interesting like variation in target. Yeah, we'll watch her do the thing. So yeah, that. Close this window. So, Balloomba. Does anyone have any questions at this point? Raise your hand or post them in the chat. In a regular practice, I would be having you all do this, and then we'd all come back and circle up and be like, okay, what did everyone learn? But we can't do that because I can't see any of your videos. Okay, there appear to be no questions. So, yes, so different size noodles are coming into play next, or soon. Before we add different size noodles, what we're gonna do first is add additional difficulty to the feed. So we were in that last one, screen share. Okay. So before we were just doing the X pattern, and now he is adding, Andrew's adding in legs, going through the legs. You can do it with one-handed shot, you can do it with two-handed. That one right there was the best one. The best example of this is the leg sweep, or pulling your leg back instead of trying to block the shot. This is a really, really, really incredibly good skill to learn. And you know, like we have other drills like that we can talk about in the distant future to work on that specifically. But like when someone's going for your leg, don't try to block it. Move your leg. That's a much easier thing to do, is move your leg and hit them in the head. It's real cool. And it saves you time, and it keeps, you're actually, you are in a much, much better position because you're not trying, like, when you're reacting to something way down there, you end up leaving your head way open, and like, it's like playing into their whole game. So just move your feet and hit them in the head. The being able to gauge where that is this where this all starts from. If you're too close, it's very difficult to be able to move your leg all the way, like what happened there, because then you're just too close. So yeah. Eric asks, what do I do if my training partner says pool noodles aren't martial? You hit them multiple times with the pool noodle and tell them to get back to the drill. Again, the reason we're using pool noodles for this and not swords is so that we can keep the focus on the footwork and on the measure and learning that piece, instead of getting distracted by sword technique and all of these other things. if I was running a whole regular practice with this, we would go through a bunch of this with just the noodles. And then at the end, you start, like after you've focused on this noodle portion, then you gear up and do it with full sparring and with full gear, so that you can then apply those skills that you learned and like took the time to really isolate and focus on. And then you can see how that now incorporates into more free sparring. But if you we see this very often, particularly with newer people, that it can be, you just get really distracted by all of the trappings of, and particularly the shininess of the sword, and then lose focus on the specific skill that we're training. So there's that. And then the next one, why won't it? This is a lot. What's happening? No, screen share. Do the thing. Do the thing. There we go. Now we're adding stabs. So we still have the leg sweeps, and then also stabbing. Less noise. With and like I know I have a few people here that are Bohurt peeps, in which we do no stabbing, and I would say still practice this part if you're doing the noodly stuff, because it's not, the noodles are standing in for a lot of different things, and that could be them rushing in on you. It could be a punch. It could be, which is a very forward sort of motion, and you still want to be able to practice being able to move aside and gauge that distance. So there's still a lot of utility, even if you are in a sport that doesn't do stabs, to still practice that, and still. So yeah, so this one, again, it's just the X's, and the leg sweeps and the stabs. Another thing here that, particularly when you're adding the stabs in, as the feeder, you still can learn a lot from just feed, even though it's a really simple feed and it seems like you're not doing anything. While you're there, really focus on training your eye and training your timing. So if you're like, think about the different places where you can put that stab in, and do you like, based on where their footwork is or where you are in your motion pattern, and how does that change? And so you're always working no matter what. Like, don't just like zone out and do the pattern and whatever. Like, have your body engaged, be in a fighting stance, be feeding this like you're fighting them, but you're just having this very limited set of tools that you're allowed to use. So you're always working, you're always training. Don't just zone out. Cool. So that's that part. What is next on my list? Stabs in. I think I have an extra video that's the same thing. Oh, okay, here we go. Okay, now we're gonna get into different size noodles. So here we go. The really, really long noodle. So basically now we're doing the same thing. And except the noodle is really long. You start noticing some really interesting things that happen here, which is like, much like someone mentioned earlier, of once you get past the sword, now you kind of have free reign and like you have a lot easier time of things, because like you've passed this huge big stick, and now you can just, now you're free. So working that timing of like what happens when in that scenario, because sometimes, you know, one, swords are different lengths, and two, so people have really long arms sometimes, and it like makes things weird. So that's that one. And then now back to solo practice stuff. Is that the short noodle? I think this is the short noodle. Oh wait, I didn't screen share yet. Go. Go. Is it going? Yes, it's going. Okay, so yeah, basically this is just a slightly shorter noodle that we just chopped a couple inches off of and are playing with that. Doing the same thing, coming in an angle, or coming in and then leaving at an angle. This, you could also do this with a single-handed sword. And practice that way, doing it with a knife, doing it with a weird, much smaller stick. All of these things, just seeing, and again, starting from that same place on the ground so that you are having to deal with that longer lunge. And really try, I think this is a good one that she was doing where she is really trying to make sure that you're not taking a bunch of little steps to get to your target. You're trying to do it all in one big step. And that, which kind of then we're gonna, I think I'm actually gonna jump. So, so basically you're gonna go through, you can go through all of the combinations of the small person having the long stick, or the big person having the long one, or getting to the really short one. There's some really interesting things that come into play when you have the long weapon, and like points out the important thing. You'll see this again in the solo one of like, if you can hit them from far away, you should hit them, and don't jam your range. Like, don't come all the way in just because you're used to that by being short. Like, hey, you have a big stick, use the length of it, and make sure you're paying attention to that. And oops. Sorry. Technology. Here we go. Okay. So yeah, I mean, you can hit it from there. So hit it from there. And again, so when we're practicing with all of these different lengths and all of these different size things and different combinations, what we're doing here is sort of creating a big sort of web of options and creating a bigger picture in your mind. And muscle memory isn't actually, like, it's false nomenclature. It's not about muscle memory, it's about neural pathways. And the more sort of stuff you have, like, in the same category of these neural pathways, like, the more, when you are confronted with the, like, infinite possibilities of a partner that you're facing with all of these different, any kind of size different weapon, or all of these variables coming into play, you've practiced all of these scenarios, like a bunch of different scenarios, and you can then, fill in the blanks between, like, what you've trained, and maybe you did a really long sword and a slightly shorter sword, but, like, there's this little bit in between. But since you have both of those things that you've practiced, you can fill in that blank a lot easier than if you've only trained with a long sword and then only trained with a one-handed, side sword. Like, that's a much bigger, like, gap to fill than if you've trained all of these little, just, like, slight combinations and variations, and then you can put that together a lot better in your head. Hey, look at our empty room. So that. Okay. So one of the things that comes into play with particularly when you have a short thing and you have to go in really far. I was saying that you want to make sure that you, let's keep looking at my face. You really want to make sure that you are going in with like one big step, or as few steps as you can. But I mean, I need the chat to hide because I got distracted. But like, if you take this big deep lunge, then you're at a big risk of being off balanced. And if someone comes in and tries to rush you or push you over, you need to make sure that you're not gonna just fall over. So with a partner, we can start now practicing or adding in a balance check. Back to same size noodles and just the X and the leg sweeps. But so Catherine, when she goes in, Andrew's just gonna give her a push, and she needs to be able to deal with that without falling over or getting messed up. He's giving just a nice solid push. It's not a strike. You want to try to like get your hands on the person and then shove them. And then as the fighter, being able to take and absorb that force. So the ways, this one's pretty hard to teach on like just without having a partner. So there's some stuff we're gonna do a little bit, but like what you want to be thinking about when, let me start that over. Is having, a good solid athletic base. You want your feet a little bit far, like spread apart. If your feet are really narrowed up, which, when you're doing things like a big Olympic fencing sort of lunge, your feet get really in line and then you're really easy to tip over. So trying to make sure that your hips and your knees are both aimed at your opponent, and that you're able to take some force from the sides is really, really crucial. And then taking, when he's giving that shove of making sure your knees are bent so you can sort of have that force sink into the ground and that. Does that make sense? So now we're getting into slightly more complicated things that are a little trickier to convey.
Beth?
Yeah.
A quick question. Catherine's a bit taller than you, obviously. Are there things that she is choosing to do in those demos that you would do differently, given this height differences? I mean, you being even more small than me. Cosmic sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things that, she is still coming at things a little bit more straight on. And I mean, we could, do you do demo? I have an Andrew. He's still here. Catherine is fighting forest fire. Well, not fighting. She's doing paramedic stuff. For forest fires. 2 equally sized sticks. Okay, so yeah, so we're doing the push. So just all of the things, and then I'm gonna come in and you're gonna shove me. So we're here. Yeah, okay. So I come in. And yeah, so it's largely that I'm trying to get up and under a little bit more, as opposed to just coming straight across. If we try to stay here, I think that's better in this zone. Okay. So I'm starting I'm trying to get, you can see my feet maybe a little bit more. Ow! Yeah, that works. Okay. Yeah, so you saw me like adjusting my feet there. Like I went in a little bit, like we're having my feet out at this angle, which kind of seems a little like can seem better, but it's not. I want to, in order to have this really solid base that I can deal with this force from the front, as well as potentially being able to deal with anything that's like if he tries to push me over, I'm gonna have a better time of this with both of my knees and hips all aimed at him. So that was that adjustment that I did there. Noodles get very staticky. I don't think we even need my phone, but so does that answer the question?
Yeah, that gives an idea. I mean, I think there's probably other things that she does that you don't do in the same way, but yeah.
I guess we can look at the video again a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I think that there are also some things in terms of, why is this on? That I think we have some, some timing things where like she can deal, like she can get in a little faster or a little easier because her legs are longer. And so I think there's things that she is not having to think about as much with that. And like, so I know, so I'm like really trying to pick my moment really carefully so that I have the most amount of time to get in, would be my other comment.
Yeah, there is one comment about how people watching the videos, it's actually a little bit laggy, and you live is actually better than the videos in a lot of ways.
Okay.
So just as a point.
Is there anything that would be helpful to go over again now that we're in this slightly like we're going to get into new stuff next? But is there anything that would be helpful to see again?
While people are thinking about that, there is a question up which is about where to get hold of noodles. Are the ones at the dollar store good enough? Or
yeah, that's what these are.
Yep. Okay.
And this is and they're all hollow. I don't know how you get not hollow noodles. This is the best noodle. It's a mega noodle or big boss noodle. It's really cool. And very, very satisfying to smack people with. Okay, if there's no more, if no one needs any clarification on stuff, I'm gonna keep going. Okay, Eric has so does the push after the hit even matter if I'm planning on bouncing out or moving after my shot? Yes, the push matters. If you, again, part of what is happening there is that it's about checking your balance and checking how you're lined up. And if you are lined up well enough to take force, you are lined up well enough to be able to leave safely and be in a good, solid, have your feet solidly under you and be in a place where that's gonna keep being safe. Because if you're just like springing out without having good base and good structure, if they chase you down, you're gonna have a problem. And so you always wanna have that good base no matter where you're gonna go, because it makes it easier to go places and makes sure that you're gonna be the most protected no matter what's happening. Kristen's question. So blocking with noodles. The point is not the blocking. Again, the point is about getting in and out. You're kind of, so it's okay that it's a little weird. You still want to focus on getting your hands up and you're reacting to stuff. But again, the primary thing here is about practicing that distance and range stuff, and not getting caught up in how well was my fenestra, was my crown blocking. Like that's not what we're focusing on. After you go through the sequence of drills with the noodles, then bust out the swords, and then add in those other parts of fencing that are still obviously incredibly important when you're actually in a fight. But now see how you incorporate those with this footwork, but not doing that earlier and getting distracted by it. So one of the biggest, the question, when people switch from noodles to actual gear, are there any mistakes you see them make or adjustments they should keep in mind? One of the biggest things is that people tend to forget everything they just practiced. And so as a coach, you want to just keep reminding them to like, hey, remember the thing we just did? Focus on that footwork. And like if it starts just completely going out the window, maybe take a step back and like go through the sequence of drills again. Instead of just going from noodles to sparring, go back to the beginning, and maybe you don't do as long of a series of of rounds with each step, but still go through some of those pieces so that you can remind people of the things they just learned, but now with swords. So that. So I guess I like 6 more videos. So when it's like, is it like unwatchably laggy?
I think it's worth playing them, and then we can see if people
Okay.
have any issues, and do maybe a quick demo afterwards or something if need be to supplement.
Okay.
If that's convenient.
Yes, I can do that. Okay, so we were just talking about the base check, and now how do you do that? Cool. How do you do that by yourself? And the answer is rubber bands. Okay, ready, set, go. So in this video, what she's doing is you get to a place where you have some tension on the band, and then you launch forward, make an attack, and then stick the landing. And that sticking the landing is replicating that shove, because the band will try to pull you off your feet. And if you're too high, if you don't have this good base that we're wanting, you'll just start getting pulled back. And so you want to be able to make this attack and then sink down and be ready for the next thing, but without getting just yanked off your feet by the rubber band. So that's that one. And then with this same sort of setup, we can do that with the thing in different positions on our body. So next, she's doing it with the rubber band around your chest, nice and high. And so that's going to even more like start pulling you off. That first one, when it's around your hips, is really focusing on like showing you what your legs are doing. And now when it's around your higher on your torso, it's starting to show what's happening with the rest of your body. And then the last one, we have this nifty doodad for this. Be careful if you're doing this at home and you don't have a little head strap, so that you're not like, you don't end up like choking yourself with a rubber band. But so now we have this thing that's like around the head, and that's even more like you're really like all of your wrestling muscles of like being able to, you know, have like your strong neck is coming into play, and then it's really a lot of like making sure your core is nice and solid, and so you're not just getting yoinked back. This is also like it's teaching you a lot of stuff about your body, but also like as a small person, what is a straight arm, the straight arm that goes to your head, and then you do the little thing, and being able to deal with that as an adult and not as a 5-year-old is great.
Hey Beth, a quick
yeah.
question from Shell was, if you're looking at someone else doing these drills as a coach, what sort of things should you look out for, and maybe what sort of things feedback would be good for them?
Do you want just from these ones?
I suspect in general, but yeah, I mean, maybe if you've got some examples from the videos, that would be cool. But if
Yeah.
as it keeps on going, as we look at some of these drills, from your coach's eye, looking at them, what sort of things jump out at you?
Yeah. Let me bring the chest one back. Sound. Yeah, so as I'm watching this one, for example, just so on that one, my feedback for her is gonna start with the fact that she took 6 little steps right here at the beginning, and really make sure that you're starting from this nice solid spot and being able to launch forward. The more little steps you take, the more you're giving away to your opponent, and the more off base you are. There's a lot of things that happen there where in between every little step is an opportunity for them to come in and hit you and you to not be ready. So being nice and ready to launch and going from one solid spot. That's, yeah.
Like you mentioned, coming in with pressure and taking pressure. To get into position, you can move as quickly as possible requires you to be stable and fast. And then if you were to come in and come to get to place where you could move that as quickly and as far as possible, that would also have similarity to, and as long as you're not coming up parallel.
Here, why don't you just come say that louder so I don't have to try to repeat it.
I don't know.
Okay.
Just one thing to mention, some people were talking about, things to look out for. When you're moving in and you're trying to find that sense of stability, that stability is the ability to move in any direction with stability once you've landed. It doesn't mean staying there. That's sort of like this balance check when you come in. Also means that you're lined up for the best position to go back out on whatever angle. This is just, okay, have you landed there? Are you able to take force coming from this direction? But if you're able to take force coming straight in from this direction, generally speaking, if you look at Catherine's lead leg, she's lined to bounce back out and recover now. She's lined up to do that. Were she kicked back over this way, were she not able to take that force or her feet weren't under her, her ability to exert force on the ground to get out would be gone. So that's part of what's going on with these balance dynamics.
Yeah. Cool. Does that make sense? Is that helpful? Things? Where's the Q&A or the chat?
Yep, that's fine. Keep on going.
What are some other ones? Yeah, I think that's kind of all that I have there. Okay, so yeah, those are all these ways that you can practice this balance stuff on your own with shadow boxing. Also, this is all of these solo drills are useful. Like if you're running a practice, incorporate some of them as well. You don't always have to be doing these things with a partner, and that when you take the time, even in a group practice, to like do some of this do a few rounds of these solo drills, it gives you an opportunity to, again, even more isolate and really just focus on your own body mechanics and how to like really hone that in. And then when you take it to back to the partner stuff, you have a few more tools and a little bit more things to work with there. Okay, so the next one is getting back into, so now we're going back to partner stuff, and now we're really starting to get into some of the grappling portions of like what is really important for being small. And that thing that I mentioned, I hope I said it out loud, is head position. Head position is the number one piece that with all of the being small wrestling techniques starts with getting your head in the right spot. It makes space. It's just where you have to start from, no matter what, is getting head position. And so I'm gonna play the video and then probably get Andrew to help with some of this. So with this one, again, we're starting from that, just the pattern, and then going in. Andrew's wearing a mouth guard for this one. But you are trying to sort of do it gently, not with like headbutting the person. And so then Catherine's trying to just get to head position, which I'm going to demonstrate with Andrew in just a second. And then once she sort of has that position, they're just resetting.
Hey Beth, if you're sharing the screen at the moment, you're not sharing the screen at the moment. So.
Nope, I'm not sharing the screen at all. Thank you. Okay. So doing the thing and then going in and getting head position. Whee! She's going also for, or messing around with doing stuff with the sword and getting some things that'll start looking like some Fiore stuff, but basically just that. I think someone said something. Let's jump forward. Anyway, okay, so Andrew, if you can help me do a little more detail on just what we're looking for with head position. I was just getting another view. So when I'm talking about head position, what we're looking for, come to here, is that I want my head, my forehead, and I want like the front of it in, let's snuggle closer, in his jaw. Because when I'm here, I can start moving his head, and so I have all the control. I have a lot of the control. What I'm not, head position is not me being here, looking over that way. This is really bad. If he tries to do that when I'm here, he doesn't have as many options. I still have control. I can still drive in and give him a hard time. I'm just gonna leave. Let me not do that. So I want to have my forehead in his jaw, looking up through his skull, and literally look with your eyeballs to where you want to go. And I want to go through his head over the top. I want him to go that way. So I'm gonna look where I want to go, even though from here, like I am standing up straight. Like this is as much leverage as I'm gonna get on him, with him also standing up straight. So, but I still have this control, because if he wants to push into me, he's like, all of my standing skills are coming into play because he's pushing into all of my body. And yeah, so that's what you want when you want that head position. So if he does, and then if he's trying to fight back from that and he doesn't want me to have head position, what he's got to do is he's got to start trying to get lower. But do this a little more gently. But eventually it'll come to the point where my hips can always get lower because I'm the shortest. And then the other really important thing here is that, this way a little bit, let me keep being gentle, is that my hips are under, or as much in, when I'm trying to get head position, I need my hips to be under my head and my shoulders as much as possible, or at the very least, my knees. If I am here trying to get this head position, I am fucked. And it gets real bad, real fast. So making sure that, you know, even as he's trying to pull down on my head, possibly, I am gonna get nice and I'm gonna do a lunge in and get under so that I can have my butt under and I can be pushing up with my legs, because one of the most important things with all of wrestling is that you are using the biggest muscles you can manage against the smallest muscles that they can manage. So when we talk about 2-on-1s with hand things, if I'm doing one arm, this is a bad news bears. But if I get 2 hands on here, it's going to be a lot better. A lot of things with this, again, with the head position stuff is, or if he has a necktie on me or any of these things, I want to be under it. So instead of just trying to use my neck muscles to defeat his whole upper body, I'm getting in here and I'm standing up with my legs and everything instead of just using small muscles. That. Thank you. So that is the head position stuff that we're looking for. Does that answer? That's some stuff. Any questions about this part? Head control, head position. Get your noggin. Look where you're going. Look, a question has appeared. The question is, how does this adjust for masks and throws from longsword or dagger? And it doesn't. You just kind of got to project your face slightly farther. Same with a helmet for steel fighting. Like, it's just that it's here. And it becomes even more important that you look where you're going, because if you're off just a little bit from like with where your head is, it kind of isn't even greater like wiggle room, and so like it just makes it like exponentially worse. So just if you're looking where you're going and you're trying to put this spot or this spot on your mask into their jaw, it's gonna work.
Do you happen to have a handy mask that you could demo that with, or are they unavailable? Feel free to say no and move on.
We have one. My other one's actually in my car, but I don't know where my keys are. Well, I can kind of.
She's right on my face.
Why did you put the helmet on? We have a mask and a helmet. Both are too big for us.
Well, too big for you.
Well, that's not too big for him.
That's
Okay.
good. Okay.
This is way too big for me, so it's going to be a little wiggly, which actually kind of illustrates the point a little bit more. This mask is too big and it's slippery, so if I start getting off to the side, I am now trying to leverage so many things with my neck muscles. It's real bad. But if I get here and then can get in, like, it works. There we go. You just have to have more better form. is the main thing. Ta-da. Was that helpful?
Yeah, that was great.
Neat. Okay. What is next? Okay, the next thing is grappling with the dead arm. So now she's going in, and Andrew is going to try to get an overhook on her, and then she has to deal with that. So this is a very common thing that happens in longsword and in all of the things, is you try to get that control and then have to get, how do you get out? So in this, I think the other video is better, so I'm going to switch to that one. Got the sound. Cool. Okay, so here, so this is a nice pause. Nope, come back. Haha. This is a really cool example. It's like totally from Fiore. Where you get your sword and then you push with it, you push it into their face. And you also can kind of see in this, like, while his head is now farther away, if you start from that position, start with head control, you then it makes everything go much easier. But so what she's doing here is, yeah, can you get back? Wait.
That's not.
Yeah. So we come here, and he gets this overhook, and this is bad for me. So I'm gonna kind of
Beth,
start. Yeah.
Could you quickly unmute the sorry, I'm not unshare the screen,
Yes.
because at the moment you're just on like a mini screen. Right. There we go. Yeah.
Okay. So we're here. I start by getting head position, because if I'm trying to do this from over here, that just gives him more space to collapse in on me, and it's not pleasant. If I'm doing this over from here, I don't have any leverage. Everything is bad. So I need to start by getting head position. Now I can go for a couple of different directions with this. I can bring my sword over the top and push away that way. It's a little more effective with a stick and not a noodle, but even with just the noodle, he's still moving. And then I straighten, and I'm trying to drive into his head and shearing into his head. And now there's a lot of options that come from here. I'm getting these to the face, which you can't really see, or just like taking them to the ground. The other direction I can go, this is that I'm gonna do a dead arm with this, with my sword hand. Starting from this, I have the head control. So I'm gonna dead arm and come around, and now I can come here. And even with this, if he is holding on really, 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 really tight, if I'm trying to be really hard and stiff and pulling out, like I'm never going anywhere like this. But if I relax this arm, put my thumb down, and come out, he was holding really hard. Do you see the muscles? And you can you slide through. And now you are in this position where you're nice and framed, and I'm nice and solid here. So if he tries to drive in, I am well positioned to be able to deal with that force. My elbows are in and supported by my shoulders, and I can go all sorts of places from here. The mailman is distracting my train of thought. the other thing with framing. So what is bad with framing is if my elbows are out here, or if I'm unsupported and he tries to come in on me, you just squish. Whereas if I get to here and my elbows are nice and my elbows are in line with my shoulders, he can pull real hard, and I am still positioned that I can resist that and deal with that force. Yeah, the same thing works here, and this is just one arm because now he's trying to pull through like just a bone. Can we like angle this? So I'm like, my shoulder and my elbow are in line, so he's putting all of his force into my whole, what's this bone?
That's the humerus.
Humerus, it's the whole humerus. And so that's a piece of framing that's really important. In the more in-person version of this class, we have been able to really go through that framing stuff. And yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. It might be helpful just to define frame for them a little bit. Yeah, because you've been using that terminology, and it's used frequently in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but other folks might not realize it. So again, just the idea of aligning your skeleton so some large muscles will support alignment where it's very, very hard to move you, and that your bones are essentially the thing that is in between you and another person, maintaining space, and is therefore less reliant on moving someone, less reliant on muscle. The difference between bench pressing someone away, creeping an arm in across. Now now they have to come off you through here, right? That's sort of the idea, and that might be a useful, sorry, not to
definitions.
Thank
you. So yeah, there are a couple of ways that we can practice this framing, even on our own without a partner. One of them is we're gonna do some planks, and yeah. So like if you literally get on the ground and do some planks, from this position, you really can feel very much like what we're looking for with this frame. If you put your arms out here, you're not doing like this. It's real hard. It doesn't work. When you're here, you can just hang out here for a long time. Some people can hang out here for like 6 hours. And so if you mess around with that, you'll really be able to feel that spot that we're looking for, which is that you're supporting your whole body or their whole body with this part and not with like just trying to do a fly. Oh, cool. Okay. The last piece of this that we'll just go into is that, so you can feel what that framing feels like by doing a plank. You can also feel it by like just literally pushing on a wall doing that. So you can feel it with yourself standing up. And then we can practice this thing. This was the pillow portion of the gear list. So now we have, so this is like a very heavy tie pad, like punching thing. So it's like, it weighs like 5 pounds. And so you're just gonna pin it to the wall. Start by pinning it with your head and like literally practicing that head position. This is a place where the noodles are very useful because it's real irritating. Like if you're doing that with a sword, you kind of can't. And so just find a wall, put a pillow up against it. If you have something heavier than that, that's better. And keep it pinned. And then here you'll see starting to do some of that transition with the framing so that you can try that one where you get your shoulder. And transition there, and like you can like mess around with all of that. And like it's okay if the pad moves. Try not to like grab it with your hands. And just see what happens and see how you can keep it pinned. You can and I'll do some in just a second, but like you can transition from with both hands and like messing around with all of that. And then here's one more real quick. And we're gonna go, yeah, okay. Taking a little trip over here. Looking for the pad. Where'd the pad go? Hand it out. Okay. So, just trying to get into a better spot. What? Yeah. Do it from this way so I'm not like totally backlit. Okay. So yeah, so we have this big thing. I'm gonna start with having head position, practice some strikes, elbows doing all the things, you can do all the stuff, and staying, again, trying to stay under it. It'll start really being apparent that if you are like starting to get to sliding down, much like when you're fighting another person, I literally can't just slide it up with my head. I have to get under it and push it back up the wall. So you kind of can practice that whole thing of like getting your hips lower and then driving up. And then here you can go from the shoulder to getting that frame. This is a place where if you're like really doing some like really strong isometrics, you can just drive as hard as you can into the wall and really feel that good base and structure. Try switching, you can punch it, doing some stuff, going back to get head control, practicing these strikes, all of this stuff, having a whole moment with a pillow and the wall. And that is a way that you can practice that on your own. Again, also it's a thing that's like, can be very useful in group practices to have people play with and mess with, and then bring it back to doing it with a partner. So, okay. That's basically this stuff. Here's one more video.
Quick question, Beth, before you dive into that. So there's a question from Charlotte online, which was that I think this goes back to where you're doing the release from the overwrap that Andrew was doing on you, and was asking about what if the overwrap happens lower on the arm compared to if it's on the forearm or wrist or something like that. I don't know if you want to answer that or later on or.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It was just mostly just a video of them wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say the question again.
So remember the setup where he had the overwrap on you and you brought your arm round in front to get to the good frame position? Yeah. Right? What happens if he's got a lower on your arm than, something like that?
Basically the same thing, and you need to do it faster because you're in danger. But again, you just relax and still do the same thing. Particularly if I'm wearing gauntlets and I'm trying to pull out, or if I have a sword and I'm trying to not lose my weapon, I still can't get out from just pulling straight forward. So even if he's right on my wrist, I still am gonna try to do that swoopy-doopy around to get out that way. But yeah, so turn your wrist over and then bloop. Does that answer that question?
I think so.
Cool. Yeah, so let's just do, we got like just over 15 minutes left, so let's do questions or discussion. Okay.
I'm going to have to go upstairs to get started. Can I add one thing in
Yeah.
here? You know, some folks were asking about the pool noodle thing and dealing with small folks and trying to manage stuff. One thing that is important to mention, generally when you're training very small people, they're often being trained by much larger people. When you get a large enough size disparity, injury rates go up no matter what when you're dealing with people when you're like 80 pounds heavier than someone. As such, working with noodles like this lowers the penalty for failure, right? Lowers the gear requirement and lets you work with smaller, more inexperienced people who are the people who are having trouble getting these skills, who aren't going to be able to get them by getting in steel and sparring everyone in a way that rewards them and keep going all the time. This is okay, cool. A, you won't get banged up. B, this is the population that's more likely to get banged up. Don't let it happen to them. That way they keep fighting. Sorry, I had to say that.
Yeah. That one. That's one I think about less because I will just fight all the big people no matter what. And with varying results. Yeah, so let's, you know, if you want to do some chit chats, raise your hand, ask some questions, discuss some things. That's, yeah, so I mean, kind of, so in conclusion, I guess, what we have, so the progression of these drills is focusing on being able to train that distance management from a variety of with a variety of combinations, so you can create this big, broad, like tool set to be able to pull from no matter what you're dealing with, and then gets into some of the key pieces of grappling that really helps you deal with force that's much bigger than you trying to squish you. So that's the stuff. Please ask questions because we have arrived at the end.
Since no one else is asking questions, do you prefer to, as a strategy, to go in and assume you're going to get into a grappling situation, or do you like to go? I mean, getting in close is obviously strategically advantageous for you.
For me personally, that's what I do. Whether or not it's the best strategy is up for debate. But yeah, I am generally, if I'm doing the plan that my plan is to get in and do things close and then leave. I have gotten better at range fighting and stuff, but definitely I want to be fighting up closer because it feels safer. I have a tendency to do this really stupid thing where I stand right in front of someone and let them hit me because I have done a poor job of managing range and I'm just standing in the donut of disappointment. Yes, the recordings will be available online, and we'll have that the Facebook Live video, which apparently is on Aiden's page, but he'll share it to the Facebook or the Swordsquatch page. The Facebook Live video will be available like right away, and then we'll be getting the YouTube videos put together and edited down just a little bit to be a little more concise, and those will be available hopefully soon, depending on bandwidth of our staff.
Since there's still no other questions, I've got another question. Yay. What would you suggest against, let's say you're fighting someone who's quite tall and has good, like, snippy, like, you know, out at range kind of stuff, and every time you move in, they just keep distance and just keep sniping at you. That sucks for a small person, apparently.
Yes. So at that point, you know, it really just kind of comes down to, like, if they keep running, you got to be more aggressive. And, you know, or and just like, and really just run them down. Or if you're playing a match that's like in a ring, like with a ring, walk them out of the ring. Like if they want to run, let them run. Bye, there goes your points. And just walk them out. If you're in something with more of a cage situation or more physical boundaries, like you can still kind of do like push them, walk them into a corner and get them stuck there. The other direction to go is like, you know, they probably still will be attacking occasionally, and really just being heckin' ready the whole time and being really, really, really like just on and ready to go. And so as soon as you see them like about to make an attack, you can beat them to the punch and get in and sort of do some counter fighting in that way that you're going to be sort of taking advantage of their plan and just like throwing a cog in it, or throwing a monkey wrench in the cogs. That's how that phrase goes.
Well, we did have one comment on Facebook. It looks like it was about from 26 minutes ago. I think this is when you were doing your the head position, and that comment is, pretend you're a unicorn driving the horn into their jugular. And I think Kevin Tang is on to the right thing there.
Yes, basically exactly that. Joe Sorrente has a question about lateral movement and how you do that. So one, basically, you know, my main focus, like all the time that I'm always trying to remind myself, is to focus on lateral footwork, because you just gotta, particularly as a small fighter. No, don't make it go away. No, where'd it go? There were a lot of words.
I can read it out for you because it's still in the
I'm trying to bring it
description.
back for you.
So I don't know if it's possible to
Wait,
bring it
it's okay.
Okay. You got it?
Yeah, so always really focusing on that lateral footwork, because you know, there's some stuff about just some geometry things in terms of their longest range, like the place where they can reach the farthest is basically sort of right in front of them, and then as it goes out to the side, particularly as it goes out to this other side, it starts shortening the range. So being able to get into, also when it's less noticeable if you're doing it with one hand, but if you're doing it with two hands, you can, you know, that shortens much up even faster, and that's like totally not illustrating my point. So instead of staying in the place where they have the most range, which is this central line, you need to get out of that into the place where their reach starts shortening. So that's super duper important. How do I practice, or what are the things that I practice? So the main thing that I practice is that in any drill that I'm doing, I'm really trying to make sure that I'm moving in and that I'm moving out always. And that just no matter what the drill is, you exit to the side. There are limitation sparring drills that we'll do, or like we'll do sparring rounds where each person has a slightly different role. And one of the ones I'll do a lot is that the person on this side, their job is to enter and then leave at least at a 45 degree, or at least 45 degrees angle. Even better would be if you leave at a 90-degree angle. So you go in, you spar, and on every exchange, you're trying to leave to the side. There are also a couple that we'll do.
Hey, Beth, can we have foot cam here? Because all we can see is down to your waist. Perfect.
Yeah. So, so you'll set up, and then we're doing this. Yeah, it goes. So this is kind of an entry footwork, but I'm going to do it. I'm here. I'm going to load up this spring and then launch in, and then kind of exit to the side. But that is also another way you can kind of get around that point. Their long reach point is coming in at an angle is also really effective. The other thing that I will think about or use as a cue for play or for people is to hit them in the butt. And even though that's not really a thing that like you necessarily will achieve, if you're trying to think about getting around them, then you will at least get halfway around them, and then you can take advantage of that way. That makes sense. So those are my answers to Joe Sorrente's question. The end?
There is another question on Facebook, which is any tips for not being in the donuts of death, or if the person is larger size, is at inside attack better? Wait, I think I have misread this. Not being in the donuts of death. Did you mention donuts of death?
I mentioned the donut of disappointment.
The donut of disappointment.
Yes. So for not staying in the donut of disappointment thing, I mean, is basically all of the drills that we did there with practicing those various lengths, you know, doing it against varying length swords so that you can really hone that perception of distance and measure. And that's, you know, and then like, if you fuck up once in a match and you get hit, make note of it and like pay attention to like, oh, when I stand this close, I get hit. So I'm going to stand here instead. And I'm going to make my decisions from this spot instead of being inside of their range and making decisions from the spot where you can get hit and you're already screwed. There's not a lot of oxygen in the air right now.
There is more smoke than air in the PNW right now.
So it's about honing that sense of being able to recognize measure and then making sure you're paying attention to it. Like, you know, when you're in a match getting ready to size up an opponent, like make sure you're taking a look and seeing where you think that's going to be. You know, there's a thing, like a lot of, you see this a lot in female fighters, that the really relying on point guard to try to keep people at bay, and as a way of like kind of enforcing that measure. And there's definitely, you know, a lot of pros to that, but like it also is very limiting. And so if you can learn to be able to assess that measure and make sure that you're reacting to your opponent's footwork and you're not just letting them move in on you, and you are not only just move this so I have a little more room to do stuff, but like not only should you be reacting to them, but again, if you're like practicing having base going backwards, so I'm not just walking back on my heels, I am in this spot where even if I'm moving backwards, I can go forwards at any moment. And no matter where I am, I can always be that spring that's ready to explode forwards at any moment. So that's a thing to also practice. Which you can kind of play around with on the bungee cords. Is a thing. Here. Do a little demo.
Where can you find bungee cords like that, by the way?
They're resistance bands. You can get them, you know, like just like you can get them off of Amazon. It's like a fitness thing. They're called resistance bands. But if you get this thing set up and then now just like practice moving, and the further you're out, the further out you are, don't fall over, computer. No, it's going to be here. I'm just going to pretend that it's hard. The farther you walk out, the more, you know, it wants to pull you back, and don't let it. So I'm going to, you know, just move around with this bungee cord on, and I really want to make sure that like don't just let it pull me back, and that I am always giving this resistance. And this is the best, sort of solo analog that you can have for this, and really getting to feel that, and not just having to like think about the inside of your body. And like anytime that you can practice a thing with external forces, you're always going to learn it better than if you're just imagining it. So and then you can do this. Doing this with shadowboxing is really, really, really good. So I'm just, imagining an opponent and doing my strikes and keeping moving from with this on and not letting it pull me back. Any other questions?
From when you've been coaching small people in the past, what sort of common issues show up and fixes? What's the most common sort of stuff that you've seen that needs to be fixed?
Running away is definitely a big one, and being afraid of the people that you're fighting. You just need to not. You can't be afraid of them, and that like if they're coming, taking advantage, if they're coming in, like take advantage of it, and that's the time that you choose to attack. Or if you are going to be moving backwards again, like I was just showing, you need to be ready to pounce at all times, and you can't just retreat. You have to be more aggressive, and you have to get in there and attack before they get a chance to. Like again, even if you're kind of relying on counterfighting and letting them sort of make the first move, you still, like, it has to be like that you're not exactly necessarily reacting per se to what they're doing. What you're like, whatever they do is like launching a whole series of attacks. And so you're just waiting, you're letting them push the go button, but it's like you have a whole thing that you're going to do. And as soon as they push that button by moving, you are going to launch in and make those attacks and then leave like before they can hit you back. So being more aggressive. Other things that I see a lot of. So not being good at wrestling. Just everyone should wrestle more. Everyone needs to wrestle all the time. Wrestle. Like wrestle dogs. Like it doesn't matter. Like just wrestle. Because being able to like, even if you are very good at fighting at range and not getting grappled, being able, like having a foundation of wrestling skills makes you a better fighter and makes you able to move better. Even if someone's just hitting you with a sword, being able to deal with that force while you're moving, you are better set up than you would be if you only play with the pretty sticks. Like the foundation of wrestling is so important for small people, because like even against someone that's not good at wrestling, if they are bigger and stronger than you, like if you can't deal with it, you're just going to have a bad day. But like, dude, the most fun thing is getting to wrestle strong dudes that don't know how to wrestle. It's so cool because they're just like on the ground and into the wall and all over the place. Because if you know even just a little bit, like you can kick their ass because they don't know what they're doing and they're just trying to be strong. And then you have the skills to be able to deal with that and use their force in ways and use their force against them and just have a better time. Yes, I agree with Carrie. Even if you don't have a dog, just roll around on your floor or push against the wall. And there's just do stuff. Just be like, mess around, be physical, hit a punching bag. Wrestle.
Kristen has a great question. I think it's probably a perfect final question. How do you take typical swordy people and make them safer to wrestle with? And oh, I wish I had the answer.
I mean, like, just you just wrestle them. So we have a thing called pressure drill, in which it basically you just it's I can't really do it without another person, but like I'm pushing on the chest of the other person, or there's a version with sticks, and you're pushing on them and giving them nice solid pressure, and then the other person is and then you're moving around like you're sparring, and then the goal is to make sure that you're not leaning and that you're not falling over, and that you can deal with pressure in sort of all of those ways. And then sometimes, like in the middle of the drill, we'll have you'll say freeze, and then you'll have the person come and like push on their arms from the sides, push on them from the back, and so that they can start getting used to some of that. It's sort of like the before wrestling, proto wrestling kind of stuff. And then the other thing is just to wrestle more. Like they're kind of, that's the thing that's hard about that question, is that the answer is to wrestle. Like there's, other than pressure drill, there's nothing else that can replace it. And even pressure drill is still only giving you just a little bit and a small taste of it. It's better than nothing.
Maybe do a quick, like, as if the heavy bag was a person, what the pressure drill kind of vaguely looks like.
Yeah. So I'm feeding. So if I'm feeding, I am just putting you're putting your hand on their sternum, not choking them out and not copping a feel, right on the sternum. And then I'm just like giving them pressure and moving around, and their goal is to be nice and solid. I can sort of demonstrate this so now the bag is giving me pressure, and I want to be in a spot where I'm not leaning. If the bag was suddenly to go away, well, it pushed me, but I wouldn't fall over. So going from here to here, like I'm still going to be nice and solid. The other thing with, like, when you're feeding this drill, if you pull your hand away suddenly, they need to not fall over. Does that sort of help? It's a lot easier if I had another person.
Of course. But yeah, I think that was pretty good. And I think we're running out of time. So any final words? You got a couple minutes, or call it a day?
I guess that's it. Thanks for checking things out. Like, if you have any questions, message me. I'm gonna keep, I'm happy to keep talking about this all the time. I'm also probably gonna start putting some of these videos up on Instagram and breaking things down a little further. So check that out. That's that. Isn't there a closing checklist from Aiden?
There sure is. That's why I'm just turning my video back on. Thank you so much, Beth. That freaking ruled. Thank you, Alex and Clara, for helping us out. And thank you, everybody, for attending the first session of Cybersquatch, Swordsquatch 2020. What is it, just 15 minutes, 7 p.m., we're going to have another session going, a ring-in session. I actually had to bring up the schedule because it's got Mike Panian, Brent Lambell, Stuart Sackett, Jude Ledesma, Dylan Byer, and Andrew's moderating that one, Andrew Sommiel. So yeah, that's coming up here real soon. I put a link in the chat with our PayPal donation. We're doing everything free this year. Everything's by donation, whatever you can. Thank you very much for donating your time and resources. If you're in the United States, don't forget to vote this November, because I don't know if you've noticed the past 4 years, but we gotta mix some stuff up. See you all soon at the next session. I'm gonna cut it right there. Somewhere. I gotta find the buttons.